Welcome to BlackUSA.News. This is the Doni Glover Show. I'd like to welcome you to the show. My name's Doni Glover. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Thank you, Lord, for another day. Thank you for helping us to make it through. We have with us Nathaniel Costley. He's running for House of Delegates in the 10th District. Good morning, Nathaniel Costley.
Morning, Donnie. Mr. Glover, how you feeling today?
Big brother, I'm just glad to make it through another day, just to make it here in the land of the living. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I can't complain at all, buddy. Great weekend.
How is Baltimore County these days?
It's different. It's challenging. There's a lot of positives, a lot of good kids out here. Just need some guidance and some structure.
Did you grow up in the county?
I grew up in Carroll County, but I was around here in Baltimore County.
Man, I didn't know they had no black people in Carroll County, man.
It's a small few.
You know, going up Liberty Road, you got a dam up there just by the bridge.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
My family, actually, I have some family in Eldersburg too, so we're real close.
That was one of my stops when I would come through there with my dog. Man, you got a little dam up there. Was it the Liberty Road Dam?
Liberty Road Dam.
Yeah.
Right as you cross the bridge.
Yeah. And now increasingly, more and more African Americans, more black folks are moving to Carroll County.
You have your fair share that are coming in. A lot of them are going to Eldersburg, like Sykesville area, right up the Liberty Road corridor.
Mm-hmm.
The schools, crime is a lot lower. They do still have crime, but you don't have a lot of the stuff that goes on down here in the town. You might get a segmented area, but for the most part, rec centers. We don't have a lot of rec centers out there. A lot of our schools, we use a lot of the schools. So the atmosphere and the environment is completely different. When I came down here, one of the things that was most challenging was to understand how our school system was operating.
Say that again?
Was how our school system was operating when I came down here. And some of the things that go on in the school system down here, we don't tolerate that out there in Carroll County.
Well, give me an example.
Well, I remember when I first came, I had a kid. My son was in second grade, and I know the kid still to this day, and I'm not going to call his name out, right? He's actually was on my basketball team for a while. So I was riding across to around the Rundle Mills. My wife called me, told me the health room called and said, my son got choked in school. I said, choked? Going to school now. But I don't want to talk to the teachers right now. I want to talk to my son because he's going to tell me what really happened, not what you want me to believe happened. So I talked my son, pulled him out. He basically told me it was an accident, right? He was walking down the hallway. Kid jumped on his back. He had his backpack, so his book bag caught his neck. So I went out, asked the teacher, could I speak to the kid? And the principal and everybody that showed who came out. I asked him what happened. He told me they were friends. I said, well, when I sent my son to school, I understand people like to play. I said, when we come to school, we come to learn. I said, we sit in the chair. We mind and respect our elders. We don't have nothing. Like, that's not how we operate. And then by the time the kids came around, I had no problems out there. But by the time we got to 5th grade, I think another one of my biggest challenges, because by then they knew who I was. I remember one of the teachers told us, my son came home with all A's and 1 B. So I said, okay, no problem. So I went to the teacher. I said, could you explain to us, like, what he's done wrong? Oh, he's great. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He's amazing. I said, well, can you explain to me how he got a B? Her response to me was, well, I didn't want him to fall. So I wanted to give him something to climb for. I said, well, man, if my son earned something, that's what we want him to have. We don't believe in setting a low baseline for him to climb. We strive to see where he's at, and if he has issues, then we'll help him get there. But as far as setting the baseline mediocre so that he has something to climb for and to help your metrics, that's not how we operate. He's in 6th grade now. He's at Subbrook Magnet Middle School. I think he's had 1B in math the first quarter. Talked to the teacher. I coach his son. I asked him what happened. Told me my son didn't do enough extra credit. He had a chance to get it. He missed it by, I think it was like 88.8. We had a talk. Took his electronic. In 3 quarters, I ain't seen another B. Only after the So I believe they got the system messed up down here. Because there's no way that you can excel.
You're big on education. Why is that, Mr. Costley?
I can't hear you.
You are big on. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
The microphone is a little distorted. Go ahead.
I didn't do anything.
You can't hear anything?
I can hear you.
I can hear you, but I can't understand. Just like, hold on. Oh, Jesus. All right. There it goes. That's better.
Why is education so important to you?
I remember my grandmother. I was in like 2nd grade. Actually, my father told me. My father did it before, but my grandmother did it first. I was in 2nd grade. My grandmother pulled me up and she asked me. She said, "Have I been a good grandmother, good mother? I got 7 kids. Why I want nobody to bring me a degree." I said, "Granny, don't worry about it. I got you. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna get you one." She said, "All right." You sit back and she'd give me the Bible. She'd be reading all night. I remember one time she gave me the Bible. And I read it. "Oh, you didn't read it that quick?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "No, you didn't." I said, "All right, Granny." She said, "I ain't read it." She said, "Well, explain it to me." So I explained it to her. She sat there. She got her glasses out, started reading. "Oh, you did understand that." Okay. So she asked me to bring her home a degree. I told her one day I'm gonna bring it home, Granny. But my mother and father had an addiction. So I had 3 brothers, 2 brothers and a sister by my mother and my stepfather. And I had several brothers by my biological father. So a lot of them were dependent on me. And instead of just running off and going with Granny, living my best life, I made a pact with my younger brothers and sisters that I was gonna make sure we all got out. So I stayed in, I endured it, got myself in a lot of trouble. Granny got me out a couple times. By the 3rd time she had put her house up on me, she said, I said, "Well, Granny, I'm gonna get you." "I don't want to hear it." I'm done. Still came, saw me. But at the end, "I'm not getting you out." So I said, "All right, no problem." I think that was my last time.
You damn right it was.
Yeah, it was. I started reading. And
that was one of them aha moments.
Yeah, Granny ain't coming.
Well, you know, God has a way of warning us and warning us and warning us. And I remember that time God said to me, "Look here, boy. I done told you to stop playing with the fire. But you keep on wanting to jab at that fire. So let me let you feel a little bit of that fire."
And when they threw that 10 years no parole at me, I think it was Carroll County was trying to give me 10 years no parole. I remember the plea that they offered me, right? They wanted to give me 10 years no parole. And if I didn't take the plea, they was pushing to give me 10 years no parole in Baltimore, 10 years no parole in Baltimore or Carroll County, whatever one. got me first, and 25 years consecutive, no parole, and either the other one. So Baltimore County convicted me first, then Carroll County was gonna give me 25 years consecutive, no parole. I was about, I think it was 1990. Hold on, it was 1997, 99 area. I was about 17, 18 years old. So I went in. They gave me 10 years. Jury convicted me. Gave me 10 years, no parole. I was read my books, did my law work, got a public defender, gave it back, and then it took me about 18 months. They let me come home at first.
Now, what was this for?
Possession with the intent to distribute.
Okay, now when you say you gave it back, I have heard that phrase used on the streets for years. What does it mean?
Basically, you win the appeal somehow, some way. Like in my situation, I went to the Court of Special Appeal. They heard my case. Some people give it back at a 3-judge panel. Some people give it back as a. I don't consider a modification giving it back. I consider that them taking it back. But sometimes you got to go to federal court. Sometimes it can take a long time. My situation,
special appeals, many people don't get that far.
Many people don't even appeal. But the problem is, what I've learned, and this is why I ran for office, because when I was growing up, deep in my heart, I wanted to be a judge. I used to think judges were at the end.
You know, you don't need a law degree to be a judge. You've had Supreme Court justices without a law degree.
I do agree with you. But it took me a long time to realize that, right? Because everybody told me I was going to be a preacher. And I'm like, well, I don't think God, I don't want to be doing that, right? My brother, I was preaching, my brother was a buck. And I was like, nah, we're not doing that. I don't want to be a preacher. I went to church. I still sing in the choir. I do what I'm supposed to do. But I didn't think.
What church do you attend?
Union Memorial Baptist Church in Westminster. So since I've been down here, I've attended, I really like this Greater Tabernacle Church on the corner of Liberty Road. I've been to New Psalmist, New Shiloh, New Antioch, and I do like Bethel AME. I did like that church. So we're kind of in the transition.
It seemed like the county that stole all the churches from the city.
It's kind of hard when you can't find no parking in the city. When you come down there, you go into church, and you come out and your car window's broken, and you got to fix the crime and the violence down there. Nobody wants to come down there in their pearly whites and leave blood on them or stain.
Well, I'll tell you something else, too. Now, when people move, as has happened over the past 50 years, from West Baltimore to Randallstown to Carroll County, integration, and then we started moving out. Very few of the people that moved to Baltimore County going to come to Baltimore City for church just on that 6-mile ride alone.
I disagree.
But hold tight. This is the more critical point. Before we moved to Randallstown, we lived, worked, went to church, played, all in the same place.
Yes.
But with the integration, half of the community started doing it elsewhere. So what's left here in the city is those who either could not afford to move or those who just chose to stay. But half of our community, including a lot of our upwardly mobile brothers and sisters, moved. And in the process, grandma died. That house they used to come to down here on Carlton Avenue, they don't come here no more. So now that house is abandoned. And the next house is abandoned. And then you got a block of abandoned houses because grandma died and the next generation moved to Randallstown. So part of it is the people that integrated, but they said to hell with grandma's house, her block, her community. Growing pains.
I find that funny that you're talking about this, right? Because I'm going through this right now, like literally the last 9 years, and I understand now why people do this, right? It was my grandmother got sick in 2009.
God rest her soul.
Yep, she passed on December 15th, 2009. Of all the people, just her and I in the room. Just her and I.
She's still with you though, cuz.
Always. Look, hold on, I show you a picture of her, buddy. See that right there? You see that right there? That's where she hanging. So I tell you, no lie, right? When she in the mantle, she stays in the mantle, up in the cup watch. I told my wife, I said, it is what it is. But when I graduated, right, I moved back out to Westland because you know where I was living at before when I left Carroll County and where I actually got it together.
Sandtown.
Nope. You know where Mondawmin is?
Up the street.
Yep. I got a little apartment. It's a little yellow house right on the corner, right? And I remember moving in there and they broke the house down into 3 apartments. And I got the middle one. So I walked in there, it was all dirty. Almost took myself out with the bleach and stuff, right? But I cleaned it up, right? Spick and span. I remember I invited my buddy, the neighbor, one day.
Did you say you almost knocked yourself out with the bleach?
Bleaching pine, so I was in there scrubbing. I was scrubbing something.
You say the fumes almost took you out.
I remember going out back because it was so dirty. And like I'm telling you, it was dirty. But I said, you know what? Some people can't see the blessing in it. So I turned that into a house, nice home. I raised my first son there for a while. Actually, my wife was living across town in one of the where she was at, off Green Spring, over by in the nice Jewish community. She actually moved in with me. And I remember when my neighbor, Toby, he's still there. I go check on him every now and again, right? Toby and Mr. Morton, 2 old people that I remember from that, right? I ain't had nobody in the house, nothing. Except for Toby. Toby came in one day, he said, wow, man, nice in here. I said, don't judge the book by its cover, buddy. I said, just stand here by myself. I do my studying. I got 2 degrees out of that house. Got it together. We had gun violence. Many people died right there on the corner, right out front of the house. But when you cover with the blood and do what you're supposed to do, keep your head straight. You don't have those. Like, they didn't bother. I think one time they tried to break in my car. The alarm went off. Made the calls. Law enforcement ain't show up. But it is what it is.
Why are you running for House of Delegates, Nathaniel? Tell us why people should support you and your House of Delegates run.
Because you got a lot of times politicians go in with a hidden agenda. If you haven't learned anything about me, anybody, I'm an open book. And too often, the laws on the book really don't support our people. The laws on the book are actually you in bondage, to put our people in bondage, to keep us strapped down, and financially at a disadvantage. So I believe everybody makes a mistake. Everybody deserves a second chance. But I also believe there are consequences and repercussions for your actions. So if you down here, you're hurting people and you're causing violence, there's a place for you. I got 2 brothers sitting there. Well, one of them's there now, right? And one of my best friends. So as we were talking about earlier, God will tell you, keep playing with the fire. I told you stop. I told you stop. If you get burned, there's consequences for your actions. So I'm definitely tough on crime, but I'm also it's not a one size fit all theory that a lot of people are putting on. Well, if you got a gun, well, many times if a person had a gun, a couple of them might still be alive. You got innocent people getting killed every day. I've never carried a gun. I don't even believe me. I don't even like guns. I don't let my kids play with water guns, nothing. And it better not catch my son on no Call of Duty. That's not what we're not in combat. We shouldn't be living in war.
What legislation are you interested in putting in? Like, say you were to win this year, what's the first piece of legislation that you will write?
The first thing I'm going to write is housing reform. Like something has to be done with this 3-year statute of limitation, right? Not everybody is smart enough to pick up what's going on within 3 years or 180 days, 60 days, the time frames that they have to get around the statute of limitations. You got investors. I'm not opposed to investors, right? But you can't have people coming out here just stealing people's homes and flipping them, making $1. When it took our ancestors, our grandparents, 30 or 40 years to acquire that home. They lived in that 40, 50 years. So my first piece of legislation is to help our people establish some type of generational wealth or protect their generational wealth against these unneeded foreclosures and things of that nature. That's the first thing I'm going at. The next thing is no way that we shouldn't have more community centers around here. We need more community centers around here. We need some laws on the book that establishes. I'm big on family, right? And trying to keep a family together. But if I'm a parent, I'm gonna use myself as an example, right? If I'm a parent and I got a parent, or my child is acting out and being dysfunctional, right? I'm going to start with the school system. We give them with some family members who can get them a better environment, a safe environment. And then if family members can't do it, I've had many of the kids come stay with us.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Out there in Liberty Road, you have more group homes there than anywhere in the state of Maryland. Have you noticed that situation?
Oh, they're everywhere. Might be one next door.
What can be done to change the fact that Randallstown, with all of those upwardly mobile black people, also has the highest percentage of group homes in the state of Maryland? I think people were trying to pay their mortgages out there. They started making their houses group homes, and then the trend never went the other way. It just kept going that way.
But you can't just put them in homes just to be putting them in homes to make $1. You gotta put them in homes, establish them, hopefully get them reconnected to their family or get them to a point where, like in my situation, I went, like I was talking to you earlier about, I went back out to Westside from Tyler after I graduated to try to save my family and give them some of the fruit. I dropped a couple dimes. You don't see it at first, right? But one of the one of the best things I heard in a long time, my cousin is graduating in New Hampshire with her master's, right? And I said, and she came out the same home with Granny. And she said to me, I said to her, congratulations. She said, you know, I had to keep up with you, big cuz. And that's what I like to hear. Instead of when you out there getting high, selling drugs and you trying to keep up that way. So if you got to be the first, that's part of the problem. I'm not a proponent of just saying group home because I've seen them. My thing is getting these kids with some loving and caring families who really care about them. It's not about just $1 in a group home. You don't want to keep what that they're showing them is that they're just a part of the system. You got a lot of people, families out here in Randallstown. I know they don't want to take on that responsibility, but my motto is each one teach one. If God has ordained you and blessed you, help somebody. Now, if they don't take your blessing and your help, that's on them. That's their problem.
So
But
listen,
God,
we have a couple of minutes left.
okay.
And we got a lot of comments over here on the side. But I want you to take a moment. I'm going to leave the screen and refill my coffee. But I want you to take a moment to give them your best spiel of why they should vote for you. Hold on. Here's one more comment. This from out in Oakland, California. And Doug is suggesting that you're dealing with gentrification. But I always ask the question, when black people don't want to come back to Sandtown, is that gentrification or is that abandonment? He lives out there in Oakland. Oakland used to be, I believe there was majority black. Now Oakland is like 20% black. Is that gentrification or is that abandonment? But those are just my thoughts. I'm going to give you the...
When I get my peace by helping other people. And I know that I got a lot of politicians that are in office right now that don't belong there. I'm not going there for the money, the fame, or the fortune. I'm going there to actually make change. And if you want somebody to actually give a voice to the people, then you need to vote for me, Nathaniel Costley Sr. And I can guarantee you that when I get to Annapolis, I don't go with the status quo. I know how to dance. I know how to make things happen. I'll learn the system. I'll help put the people in place. And we'll have a staff that actually fights for the people, that is by the people, of the people, and for the people. So I don't know when the date is because they keep changing it. But when early voting does happen, make sure you educate yourself, get yourself out there, and vote for me. Get somebody new a shot. That's all I have to say.
That's pretty good, man. Have you ever run before?
Yeah, I ran about 4 years ago. Came up a few votes short, but I had jumped in the race at the last second. So
what place did you come in?
I came in fourth place.
You ran a short race and came in fourth place?
I think it was fourth or fifth. It was fourth or fifth place. I know Adrian won, Brooks won, and Jalisi's won. And I was right in that mix. So I wasn't
not bad for a little bit of work. Imagine if you get to run the full campaign. And like you said, we don't know. They keep changing the date.
So you don't know when, but as they say, be ready. And as you can see, it's been up there for 4 years.
Hey, what's all the trophies for?
Oh, my son plays basketball. So one of the things I try to show him, my oldest son's a football player. I can coach him up, but he's at Franklin and Marshall race. So I took him to the Hall of Fame up in Canton, and then I took my other son to the NBA Hall of Fame. We got another trophy room in the room.
And you a coach too?
Yes, sir.
What do you coach?
We the Maryland Legends, right? See, that's the other thing I do, right? I know they got other programs out here, but I refuse to let anybody put bad gas in my son.
So what sport is that?
Basketball. My son is pretty good. I'm proud of him. We went to Jersey last weekend. I think we played Friday. We played in Harford County. Saturday we was in New Jersey. Sunday we was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And then Sunday we was back in Baltimore by 4 o'clock for 3 more games. We played 9 games this weekend.
And how did you do?
Well, we went 1, 2. We lost 1 game.
Well, damn, that's phenomenal, brother.
Thank you. We lost 1 game. And you know why we lost that game? I don't make excuses for anything, right? But we lost that game because I had some kids on the team who normally don't play. So I gave them the first half. So it's
So
not always about
everybody get a touch.
everybody got on the court. So that's you can win some, lose some, but as
But
long
you
as the
think
kids
you won in the long run.
always. So I'm really happy. I even got a girl on the team.
Good
So
stuff.
and
Well,
that's
we
to
want
show
to
my
thank you.
daughter. I got 2 daughters, so they're up next.
We want to thank you for joining us, Mr. Costley, and we got to get you back on the show and let us know how the election is going.
Okay. And in the meantime, I'm going to get your book, buddy.
Yes,
I did,
sir.
I did my research,
Yes, sir. That's one of them. I Am Black Wall Street. The other one is Unapologetically Black.
and I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
you. That's the
Appreciate
one.
you back, Mr. Costley. We wanted to talk to you next time, big brother.
Thank you, Mr. Glover.
Yes, sir. And next up, we're going a little further to the 10th District. Got Mr. Ruben Amaya. Where you at, Ruben? Don't see you. Ruben is running in the 10th District. You want to unmute that microphone?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Buenos dias, señor.
¿Cómo estás?
Está bien, mi está bien.
Qué bueno.
Bienvenido a BlackUSA.news.
Thank you so much. How are you doing?
Doing good. Ruben Amaya, you're a young man.
So they say, yeah.
So why are you running for House of Delegates there, Ruben?
Yeah, so I'm running for a pretty simple reason. I think what we're seeing out of this pandemic, and even before the pandemic, is we're seeing working families pretty much being at the back burner of policies that we're seeing enacted in our state. My background comes from a humble background of parents who immigrated here from Central America with the hopes of giving my sister and I a better future. And one of the things that my parents always instilled in me is that just because you start with nothing does not mean you have nothing to offer. And so my mom started her first job as a janitor at a Target. My dad started his job as a dishwasher in a kitchen. And throughout the years, they're now both successful small business owners. But the truth is that achieving this quote unquote American dream is just not the reality today for many working folks in my district, in Baltimore County, and throughout the entire state and even the country. And so, what it requires us is to enact bold policies that lift up our working class. When we're seeing today is people aren't asking for much. People are asking for dignity and respect in the life that they're living, not just for working folks, but everyone across the board, people of color, young people. And we have to make sure that we're guaranteeing future generations of Marylanders equality that uh, is deserved, but also equitable down the road. But this means making sure that we're creating safeguards in many key areas, such as education, right? Our teachers are overworked and undervalued, which is why I'm fighting for a 70,000 starting salary for teachers and educators across the board, including pay raise. We're seeing today that our educators are not only responsible for just teaching our students how to read and write and add numbers, but unfortunately, they have the extra burden of protecting our students from external threats. And with the pandemic, now they have to deal with the trauma that our students are bringing to the classroom from back home and from where they're living in, with dealing with not being with their peers for almost 2 years. And then, of course, we're seeing a rise in how we're dealing with school discipline. And so our educators are really dealing with a lot, and we got to make sure that we're treating that what they're dealing with as a profession. It shouldn't be that a teacher has to work two part-time jobs to make ends meet. And so I want to make sure that we're doing that, but also prioritizing the mental health of our students, making sure that we're hiring more counselors and school psychologists, and also implementing financial literacy and civics back in our education system so that our students can be prepared for a 21st century learning environment. I can't tell you how many times we tell our students that they need to be prepared for the future, but we're not teaching them how to write a check, how to fill a 1099, a W-2. And then we expect them to learn these things when they graduate high school, and we're not really preparing them or a financial literate world, right? How to get access to credit, how to maintain your credit score. And we're not teaching these things on a public school level. And it absolutely disproportionately affects students of color. And we're seeing that all around the state. But then finally, of course, making sure that our education system gets the funding that it needs. We live in the wealthiest state in the country, and there's no reason why we can't fully fund our public education across the board, which is why I want to expand on the blueprint for Maryland, and making sure that we're continuing to make those gains in our infrastructure, in our payroll, but also the technology access that our students are getting. But that can't be possible, right, without an environment that we can live in, which is why I'm fighting for a Green New Deal for Maryland. And so, what does that mean, really? That means
Well,
making
damn,
sure.
Ruben, let me ask you. You gonna let me get a
Sure.
question in?
I'm sorry, there. I get passionate about these things.
Well, slow down. So, what do you do for a living, Ruben?
So right now, I'm a full-time student at Stevenson University, and I work two.
No, no way. Now,
Yes.
I would have imagined you like sell cars, insurance, either a
No.
preacher or a lawyer.
No. I'm a full-time student, and I
You're
work
a
two.
student. Where'd you learn to give a stump speech like that, Ruben?
I just
You've
I'm
been
just honest
studying
about my
politics for a minute, Ruben. I'm not slow.
for quite some time. Yeah, I've been involved in politics since about 2016, since I've been in high school.
Well, you like a young old man. Damn.
I get
So,
called an
Ruben,
old
I want to
person.
unpack something.
Sure.
Now, Northwest Baltimore County, Owens Mills, even Liberty Road, there's a burgeoning Latino population.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that are unique to that community?
Well, I think two issues come to mind. I think first, representation, and access to opportunity. I think uh, what makes my race so unique is that I'm running to be the first Latino to hold elected office here in Baltimore County. So that really means a lot when we've had over 200, 300 years of history, and we still aren't seeing to this day a government that is reflective of our diversity.
There's not
Baltimore,
one Latino in Baltimore County politics,
no, sir.
Democrat or Republican.
No. No,
Wow.
so yeah, and that was something that I found very interesting when I was running. I didn't know that when I was running until, I constantly would ask and find out. And so that's a huge issue when we're seeing a Latino population that is growing very fast here in the county. So we got to make sure that we have a government that's reflective of our population because, as I'm sure you know, when we have people that look like us, it engages more people in the democratic process. It holds more confidence in our constituents, and they feel more engaged with what's going on.
It's supposed to, Ruben,
Uh,
but just like the Latino community, the black community, yeah, we have representation, but a lot of black people don't trust politicians.
yeah, and that's very true. And it goes beyond representation. It means making sure that when you elect someone, that you're holding them to their word. One of the biggest things I tell any voter that I talk with is, if you vote for me, I want you to make sure that you're holding me accountable. That these initiatives that I'm promising you on the campaign trail, I want you to make sure that my first year as delegate, or for those 4 years as delegate, you're holding me accountable. And if you're not impressed, or if you're not satisfied with the work, then I'll have to deal with that on election day 4 years to get 4 years down the road. But what I tell constituents is that you know you need to elect people that have these lived experiences. I don't take a single dime from corporations, developers, special interests, or super PACs because I hold myself accountable to constituents every single day, because I've been on that back burner. And you got to make sure that we're electing politicians that are going to hold themselves accountable, that are going directly
Who do you answer to at the end of the day?
to me. Well, first and foremost, I answer, firstly, in my faith, I answer to God, but second and foremost, it's to the constituents, right? We have to answer to to the constituents.
Ruben,
Um,
Ruben, you say you answer to God.
mhm,
I'm proud of that.
yeah,
And don't change. Because God is God.
yeah,
Whether we black, brown, Latino, white, purple, green, God is God. And I hope you stand on that for the rest of your life.
thank
So
you.
you
And
know you answer to God. You don't need anybody to tell you right from wrong. Lying is lying, stealing is stealing. Being a con man is being a con man.
yeah, and I think what we see in politics is even the purest of people corrupt easily. And what we got to make sure is that when people are held to elected office or they get these reins of power, they easily get corrupted, right? And so it's making sure that your faith stays strong with you because that's what's going to keep you grounded. That's what's going to keep you level headed, and making sure that your ego is not inflated when you get up in Annapolis. Because I've seen too many times people with such pure hearts, they get elected and then the story changes immediately. Um, and it hurts thousands and thousands of
Why
people at the end of
why
the day.
why do you think that happens? Do you think it's their inability to handle the spotlight? Or do you think it's just human nature? They say absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. Well, it's a little bit of both, right? I think people crave the spotlight, especially right, politicians, right? Politicians would easily kill for 10 minutes of TV time, airtime, just to make themselves look good. But I think what that does is it inflates their ego, their narcissism, and they forget at the end of the day who they're actually representing. And then they'll start thinking about the reelection higher up and what they want to do, and then they forget that they've got 4 more years of trying to represent hundreds of thousands of people. And then, yeah, power does corrupt, right? When you're up there, you get a fancy nameplate, you get all these perks, all these privileges. It absolutely goes to someone's head. And you see this every single day, not just in Annapolis, but in DC and any elected office. And it's important that representatives humble themselves, that they grew up in the same neighborhoods as the people they're representing. They're
What's going to keep you balanced, Ruben? I mean, you're a young man. You're into politics in your 20s. You're in college. I was not thinking about running for office in college. I was thinking about the girls at Spelman College across the street. How were who was your mentor?
so my mentor, well, first, my parents really taught me that, like I mentioned earlier, that just because you start with nothing doesn't mean you have nothing to offer. And so that really humbled me in ways because I realized, just because we came from a background, that didn't have the same economic means as a lot of people, we had a lot more to offer than just that, right? We had something to offer in our hearts, in our minds, and that's something that I wanted to contribute into my community. And so, my mentors are community leaders, my teachers, my people that have constantly told me throughout my life that what you're doing in your life and what you want to achieve is beyond yourself. It's what impact you're going to leave, what kind of mark you're going to leave on this planet. And for me, I think that means making sure that I'm making younger generations' lives better. I have a little sister that's 15 years old, and I think about the world she's going to grow up in every single day. Her time in high school is not the same as it was for me in high school, and that was only what 6 7 years ago. And so there's a huge difference we're seeing year after year with the world changing. And so for me, what's going to keep me grounded is making sure that I constantly seek the challenges that people are facing and go directly to the communities. Just another point, one of my big things that I want to be doing as delegate is not telling people to always just come visit me at my office, but I want to go to them. Throughout my time on the campaign trail, I go to small businesses. I go to businesses who've asked for their local representatives to come to them, and they've been denied those requests. And so I go to them. I go to people's homes. I door knock every single day. And because I think that's what movement politics is all about. It's about meeting the people where they're at, not the other way around.
STEM. We're big here as you can see on STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. One, when I look at Baltimore County Executive Johnny Ochesky, he's a former educator. I think he's probably, or certainly was, the best candidate in that race, especially in light of education.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think the lady, what was her name? Her name escapes
Vicky
me.
Almond.
Huh?
Vicky Almond.
I don't think education was big on her list. I don't think it was the Democrat Republican guy. I don't think it was big on his list. But I'm willing to bet it all over again that Johnny Ochesky is as big on education today as he was before becoming county executive. The east side of the county, a lot has changed over there, but it's still very industrial. Over on your west side, Catonsville, Randallstown, Owens Mills, where are we with STEM? Science, technology, engineering, math. Where are we at engaging our young people on the west side of the county into tapping into those kinds of careers? Help me out, Ruben.
So the truth is, we got to do a whole lot more. The west side of the county, unfortunately, has been neglected so many times in funding requests. And this has been something that has been expressed to me by many of my constituents. So I went to Franklin High School on the west side of Baltimore County. So that's near Reisterstown. But surrounding schools like Milford Mill, Randallstown, Woodlawn, we got to make sure that we're investing not just in the infrastructure of those schools, but the access that students are getting to being prepared for a 21st century working environment, right? Today, getting a job is a lot more than just learning core skills, but learning the economic impacts, but also the technological impacts, right? We got to make sure that we're training young people in tech, in coding, in cybersecurity. Our fields are expanding every single day. And so we got to make sure that the funding is provided. And that's, like I said, Maryland's the wealthiest state in the country.
And I just want to add to that, Ruben.
Yeah.
Now I'm 56, but in 1973, they started pitching this Maryland State Lottery at us. They promised more money for education. That was the big push. 1973, lottery. Give us lotto, 3-digit, 4-digit, and give that. That's what the politicians say. Give us that, and we'll give you money for education. Now, I know you've seen the drama we've endured here in Baltimore City. Icicles on the classroom, or young people in the middle of the warmer months, and it's hot as the blazes inside the classroom, no AC. But similarly, Baltimore County has had a challenge or two, particularly under that last county executive, Kamenetz, where he always came up in the news, and the big question was, fixing those schools in Baltimore County with making sure they had heat and air.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? And we only have a few minutes, but take your time. We can go over. What are your thoughts on the emphasis that we put on gambling, lottery? They just approved table gambling a few years under O'Malley. Table gambling, slots. We got a new football stadium, a new baseball stadium. What does that say to you? We got new stadiums for our pro athletes who they give up some turkeys and some coats in Christmas and Thanksgiving, whoop-de-doo. But the tax dollars that it took the Maryland Stadium Authority to take from the lottery to put on sports, but we don't have appropriate education facilities for our students. It's frustrating. Ruben, what are your thoughts?
I think, frankly, it's appalling. I think for any child, education is a great equalizer. And I think politicians need to make sure that we're finally fully funding them. I think one of my biggest things, too, part of my criminal justice aspect, is that we're making sure that we're legalizing cannabis. And I definitely think revenue of that can go directly into our public school systems, because I think when we look at communities that have been affected by the war on drugs, certainly our schools have also been impacted by that as well. But like you said, you're right. All around the county, there's no reason why a child has to wear 3 layers of coats when it gets cold, or are sweating bullets when it's 90 degrees outside in a classroom that has no AC, or when they're not learning core life skills to be prepared for the future. And so this is just complacency that we're not really grasping the reality of what's going on in our schools. Our teachers say it every single day that we're not fully funded. We're not getting the pay we deserve. Our students don't have the supplies they need. They don't have the technology they need. They don't have access to universal broadband. I mean, we're
They're
hearing
saying
this
this.
every single day.
They're saying this in Baltimore County.
Yes, I mean it's the same throughout in Baltimore County. My high school didn't get AC and heating until 2019.
Now
Until
I've been to your high school. You out there? That's out there where the Gucci Giant is, right? That's what they
I
call it, the Gucci Giant. But let me throw this to you, Ruben. Liberty Road has lost 3 supermarkets. You lost a Giant, a Food Line, and a Shoppers.
Yep.
Now, help me out. Is it that Walmart has crushed the competition? Where the
Well,
supermarkets?
yeah, well, I think that's what I say all the time, right? We're seeing grocery stores close down, but we're seeing more gas stations being built up. We talk about investing in our youth, but we don't have any rec centers all along Liberty Road for our youth to participate in programs in. And I think at the end of the day, it's this developer influence that we're seeing within our county, which is why I said in the beginning of this that I'm not taking any money from developers, because I want to make sure that when we talk about economic development, the constituents are part of that process, not developer influence. And so, yeah, I think what we're seeing is these big corporations, they're taking over, and it's hurting people at the end of the day, especially along Liberty Road, our senior citizen population. When they need access to fresh fruits and vegetables and having access to a car is limited, it creates a huge detriment for them, for working parents who need to provide food for their kids. And at the end of the day, it hurts everyone in the process. And so when we look along Liberty Road, we got to make sure that we are emphasizing economic development in that area. There's no reason why neighboring Owings Mills, just about 5 minutes away, has more access to these opportunities, and we're not seeing the same in other economic zones in our district. So we got to
Well,
make sure that it's fair across the board.
now Owens Mills has even more Latino uh, people than does Liberty Road.
Yes.
I guess we will be soon seeing some Latino candidates coming out of Ricestown, Owens Mills, Pikesville.
Maybe. Not sure about this election cycle. I haven't heard much. I know in 11, right, we see the incumbents running for re-election. I know in 11A, Cheryl Pastor is running for House of Delegates in that seat. But we might very well, possibly.
So, what will be your first piece of legislation, Ruben?
My first piece of legislation that I want to write is reforming our Blueprint for Maryland schools program, and immediately making sure that we're securing funds to raise teacher pay. And what that looks like is making sure that we are making sure that the ultra wealthy in our state are paying their fair share of taxes. And I'm talking about the people that are making millions and billions of dollars, just so that's clear. So it's not impacting working folks across our state. We're going to make sure that we're holding people accountable in what they're paying. And so I want to make sure we're doing that first, to make sure that we're prioritizing education across the state. We're keeping good teachers in our state, because without a strong functioning public education system, you can't have anything else. And so if we do that first and make sure that we have students stay in our state and provide economic opportunities all across Maryland.
Final thoughts, Ruben and Maya.
Just that, I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing around our county, our state, and our country, um, is very detrimental, and we got to make sure that we're answering the call to working folks. People aren't asking for much. They're asking for a decent wage, a decent life, and stability. And as delegate, that's exactly what I want to do.
How can people support you, get in touch with you?
So feel free to visit our website at rubenamaya.org, rubenamaya.org. We are a 100% grassroots, people-powered campaign. So if you want to be part of something that's going to change what local politics look like, please feel free to reach out to me through our website contact page, and I'm more than happy to answer any more questions and be a part of this movement to change our communities for the better.
So I just want to say on behalf of Black USA and Be More News, we want to thank both you, Nathaniel Costley, also Ruben and Amaya, for joining us. We want people to know about the full list of candidates that are out there. We know that, you always have those usual suspects, but it's important to us to make sure you have a voice. That's why we built this. We wanted to even things out. A lot of times, like if you're running for governor, you got to have millions and millions of dollars to run those regular commercials. We want something for the everyday person. That's why we built this thing 20 years ago. Not this particular platform, but we want everybody to have full access, because I've certainly learned a lot from both of you in this past hour, and can only imagine we'd learn more if we had more outlets like this. When I cut on Fox, I'm hearing the Mosbys, a whole hour of the Mosbys, and it's like there's so much more going on in the world. So we commend you. We want you to push forward and work hard, knock on as many doors as possible. We can help you announce your fundraisers. We want you to come back on this platform and let us know how this is going, because I see something in both of you that I don't see in the other candidates. I see a real connection to the people and the real things that people are dealing with, whether it's incarceration. Ruben, we didn't even get into what a lot of Latino women go through. We've worked with Janet Arcee out in Highlandtown, but I'm well aware that a lot of people, if they're dealing with immigration status and say they're dealing with a sexual assault, a lot of times Latino women can't go to the police, and so they're in a really messed up place. And I can only imagine that on top of the pandemic, on top of COVID and ICE and all of these, scenarios. Nathaniel, out there, dealing with young people. Both of you talked about sports. There are black people out Liberty Road that said, take them damn basketball nets down. That was news to me. I learned about that about 10 years ago. What you say, Nathaniel?
I've heard it and I've seen it. They did take all our basketball courts down. But what I try to, believe it or not, try to teach my kids, because I was listening to you. My son is actually in STEM. He's 11 years old. He'll be 12 in July. So he's in all GP classes, straight A's across the board. And I know that we have a lot of issues with our school systems, that the resources that are not in place. But I'm a firm believer that it starts at home, and you have to prepare them to go to school, because a lot of the challenges that are happening when they get to school.
Nathaniel, we got to get off for the 10 o'clock show. Let's put your number out there. Ruben, put your number out there, or any contact information, and then we got to make room for the 10 o'clock show. Come on, Mr. Costley. How can people reach you?
My number is 443-929-9099. My website is 443-929-9099. And I'm always open and available. Give me a call. That's the best way.
Ruben, how can people reach you, buddy?
Feel free to reach me at 443-286-2244.
One more time.
443-286-2244. Or you can email me at ramaya@rubenamaya.org.
Good deal. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Have a beautiful day. Good morning, world. My name is Doni Glover. Stay tuned for Mr. William Honolulu and the Black USA News Morning Show.
Thank you, Donnie.
You're welcome.